Got it. We are live streamed.
Well, happy post-Thanksgiving Saturday, folks. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. You know what that crazy guy is. He got a lot that he want to say today. He's been texting me all week. All week. He ain't gave no thanks. He ain't showed no respect.
You know what's
He ain't
crazy?
showed no gratitude.
You know what's
He ain't
crazy?
did a darn thing but harass me all week, people. All week he's been harassing Dr. Pitts. Welcome to House Talk Pregame, folks.
Welcome back. Welcome back. You know what's funny about that? You know how every holiday, that's the only time your phone blow up with messages all day is, happy Thanksgiving, happy Christmas, happy New Year. So, and normally you find yourself having to type it out all the time, like happy Thanksgiving. One of my friends sent me a picture of a Happy Thanksgiving banner. And I said, bet, I'm just going to send this to everybody.
Copy and paste.
You got to be thankful. You got to be thankful for the little things in life. Like it's the little things. If you don't stop and appreciate the little things, you'll miss the whole point. And to that point, thinking about being thankful this entire week, oftentimes I'm not really thankful for social media. Social media oftentimes.
He's about to take cheap shots, folks. That's what he does. He's a cheap shooter. Go ahead.
But
go ahead, get it out.
Sometimes, social media just comes through. Not, like God said, the guy don't come on time, he come right on time. So social, but we go, you know what? We're gonna save that for a little bit later. Because we got so much to talk about today. It's not Championship Saturday, it's Rivalry Saturday. We got a whole bunch of rivalries going on today. We got the game between OSU, Ohio State, and Michigan today. Looking forward to that one. We got the Iron Bowl, Alabama and Auburn. We got Washington State. Unfortunately, here in the state of Virginia, for those who have been keeping up with, Virginia has been, unfortunately, in the headlines for a lot of the wrong reasons lately. But the Commonwealth Cup between UVA and Virginia Tech was canceled this week. The players, the coach, shout out to the coach of UVA. I have no idea what his name is, but shout out to him. He allowed the players to decide the last 2 weeks if they wanted to play. And they've chosen, not to play the rest of the season in honor of their teammates who were unfortunately, taken from us a couple weeks ago. So, our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to the players at UVA as they continue to deal with this grief, deal with the loss of their teammates and the entire UVA community and everything in Charlottesville. Our thoughts and condolences continue to go out to those families affected and everything. Shout out to the players for making that choice. It's never easy to not want to go play, especially for a lot of athletes. We use the game as a way to escape, but when that tragedy hits so close to, your brothers, the people that you go to battle with every single week in and week out, it's kind of hard to want to go out there and play knowing that those people who were taken from you would have given anything to be out there with you that day. So, shout out to those players and shout out to the seniors, who are also getting ready to transition from, college and everything, getting ready to go on to the rest of their lives and all that. Obviously this is not how anybody imagined, the season, concluding for UVA or anything like that. But, sometimes things just happen and, it's not about, getting stuck on the moment. It's about being able to work together and come together and get through that moment. So shout out to them and everything. But yeah, we got a lot of great games coming on today. Shout out to Benedict College down in South Carolina hosting the second round Division II playoff game today against Wingate. Wingate beat the Panthers of Virginia Union last week. Just had to throw that in there real quick, so
slide that right on in.
A little bit. But so Wingate is playing against Benedict today. Benedict is the last remaining HBCU in the Division II playoffs. Fayetteville State also lost last week to Delta State, all the way down in Mississippi. So shout out to Benedict. We're rooting for you today to continue to advance, because if you advance, you get to host another playoff game. So shout out to you all for that. Speaking of playoffs, before we get into our mental health tip of the week and everything, since we're on the topic of football and everything, So, we were talking about Jackson State all season, been rooting for them all season and everything. And shout out to Coach Prime for leading this team to another 11-0 season. Well, not another 11-0 season, the first 11-0 season in Jackson State's program history. Tremendous season. So, it wasn't really talked about, pretty much all season. And I have in the back of my mind, I was thinking about it too, because typically whoever wins, the SWAC or the MEAC, whoever wins the SWAC and MEAC normally meet up in the Celebration Bowl. That's played in December down in Atlanta. It's between the top team from the MEAC and the top team from the SWAC. And it's a good exposure game for both conferences. It's a national televised game. There's a big pool prize. I believe the winner of the game gets, the school gets up excess of $1.5 million, for whoever wins and whatnot. So, a good money game, a good opportunity for those kids to play on national TV and, kind of who's the best HBCU in Division I AA. Right. But with all this hype around, Jackson State, all the, the expectations, all the, just like, man, he has a star-studded roster for HBCU down there. Yeah. The question that everybody was asking, but not necessarily out loud, was, well, how would Jackson State stack up against the powerhouses of FCS, the North Dakota States, the William and Mary's, the Richmonds, the East Washington universities, the Youngstown State, all these powerhouse FCS schools that have literally been dominating Division I AA for decades now. And, there really hasn't been a space for a FCS school to get in. So to my knowledge, I want to say Jackson State finished the season ranked number 5 in the country for Division I AA schools, which is phenomenal. HBCU ranked number 5 in the country. That's nothing to, shake a nose at or anything. They also had FAMU. I think FAMU was 10th or 11th in the country too. FAMU finished the season 9-2. They also didn't get in. I think they got snubbed. One of my homeboys is the special teams coach down there, and I text him. I was like, bro, like, y'all only lost to UNC and Jackson State. Everybody else, y'all beat handily. So it's unfortunate they didn't get a chance to make the playoffs and everything. But I'm kind of disappointed. I'm not gonna lie to you. Jackson State, they play in the SWAC championship next week. I don't know who they play, but they'll probably, beat. I think they play South Carolina State in the SWAC championship.
Again?
So they'll probably end up beating them.
Isn't that who they played last year?
They did, and South Carolina State actually beat them. So
right.
I'm not gonna say it's just gonna be easy win, but I'm just saying they probably most likely will win. No snub against South Carolina State. Y'all had
smell revenge in the air.
Yeah, I think this is because Deion hinted at it. He was like, well, regular season champs and actual champs is two different things.
Right.
Don't sit there and say I'm the champion of one side and I ain't win the whole thing. Like, that ain't no champion. That's just you just get the chance. So, but they interviewed Deion and they asked him, well, what do you think about the FCS playoffs and everything, and having to go to the Celebration Bowl? So in a nutshell, Deion's whole argument is, well, why do we have to settle for the FCS playoffs or just the Celebration Bowl? Why can't we get invited to a FBS Bowl against one of the bigger Division I schools? And his whole point is like, a lot of the bowl games, especially the ones that start in the beginning of December, they're normally filled with 6-6, 7-5, teams that just because you had a winning record, you get an invitation to the Waffle House Bowl or the Adidas Reebok Bowl, everything like that. Like, bowl games that, no reason there should be a bowl game, but they have them, they're money games. They have them. It's a fun time for the teams and everything. So that's kind of his whole approach. And, granted, like, I like the ambition. I like the idea and everything. But I'm sorry, like, just me personally, and I could be, selfish, biased, whatever the case may be. I would like to think that, all this investment that Coach Prime has made in the Jackson State the last 2.5 seasons and everything, we measure teams and programs by championships, not by bowl games. I get for some programs, bowl games at the FBS level, that's like, a good thing. You had a winning record, you get to go to a bowl game, nice conclusion to a season. But when you are saying you're a powerhouse program and you're building yourself to be one of the upper echelon programs, the hell with a bowl game. Like, I want a title. I would like to think, if I'm somebody like Travis Hunter down in Jackson State, I flipped from Florida State, came to Jackson State, I want to win a ring. If I'm coming down here while I'm here, yeah, a SWAC championship, hey, winning a conference championship is no easy feat. It's not easy at all. And when you win one, it's special. You'll never forget it. But I just feel like somebody like Jackson State caliber, if I really want to prove to the people that we're not just some foo-foo program and I'm not just coming here to just build my name up and show people I can coach so I can leave. Don't you want to go against the big dogs of your division? Like, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, we should go play, Idaho in the Potato Bowl or something. We should go play Boise State in a bowl game. Damn, can you beat William and Mary?
They think, maybe, Ronnie, is it possible that it's viewed that the bowl game invitation is viewed as a stepping stone? That because of the politics involved in sports, is it possible that the perspective is that, what, if we get invited to a bowl game, that's a step in the right direction. We prove ourselves in the bowl, and then maybe next season or the season after that, we get the invitation to the change.
I don't know, because none of the other programs from, like, for example, so James Madison, JMU, they just moved up to the FBS level this past season. Prior to that, for the last, I want to say, the last 6-7 seasons when they were at the FCS level, they were competing for a national title. So they had built up enough cachet. They had built up enough, basically enough notoriety and enough credibility to make that jump to the FBS level.
Is it money?
Now, I know in order to jump up, like, for example, because Virginia State has tried to, jump up to the MEAC on several occasions. And from what I've been told is that your school has to be able to generate enough money to buy yourself into the conference, because you have to, they have conference dues and fees and stuff like that. And then you also have to have enough, money on the back end to provide a certain amount of scholarships, because when you get to the division at the FCS level, it's I want to say it's 35 scholarships, like 35 full-ride scholarships.
So it's like the socioeconomic status in the hierarchy of play is Absolutely. What it sounds like. And no disrespect, but it sounds as if within that hierarchy that HBCUs are coming in at the lower socioeconomic status, which just by design of the fact that there's financial restrictions, right, that by default is excluding them from consideration at the championship level.
Yeah,
but and also the name of the game for us as a people.
Exactly. And then the other point too is, like, to my knowledge, I have yet to see an FCF school get selected for a bowl game at the FBS level. Now, and so Dion made this point too. Nowhere in the laws does it say a bowl game, a person who's hosting the bowl game. There's nothing in the rules that say they can't nominate a FCF school to play against an FBS team in a bowl game. There's nothing that says that. But I also think, once again, it's also about the politics and the image, because if you let an FCS team come up, basically what you're saying is that there wasn't another FBS team out there in the entire country that could have been suited. Now, granted, yeah, exactly. But if that's the case, I think Jackson State, well, why don't you go? If you really want to prove that you are actually, legit, go win a national title at the FCS level. Go to North Dakota State, go to the Fargo Dome, beat them, travel to William and Mary, try to Williamsburg, beat them, go to Rhode Island, beat them, go to all the other powerhouses. If you really want to prove you're legit, go to those schools and beat them. Why the hell are you worried about beating a 6-6 FBS team when you can go beat a 13-0 undefeated team for the national title? I'm just saying. I'm just saying, I get it. The Celebration Bowl
perspectives.
I think the Celebration Bowl is cool. It's once again, it's a fun thing. But if your team is only going to win 1.5 million, we know this. We know how this works. That 1.5 million ain't going directly to the football team. That's going to the school.
Right.
Jackson State has a football player on their team right now who just made almost $600,000 this season. Deion's son almost made $900,000 in NIL money this season alone, and you worried about some $1.5 million for the school? My only thing is, it's going to be hard to continue to attract that type of talent when we know, yes, is Deion a great coach and everything? Yeah. Does he have a lot of connects at the NFL level? Yeah. If Deion says somebody can play at the next league, will somebody give them a shot? Most likely. However, at the end of the day, in order to keep a program legitimate, in order to keep the money coming in, you have to win championships. That's what any sport is about at the end of the day, winning titles, winning championships, not a bowl game, not no.
What happens if he leaves? I mean,
if Deion
it's going to
leaves,
go right back to where it was, in your opinion.
They'll be irrelevant. And I hate to say that, but let's be real. The only reason they're relevant right now is because he chose to go down there in 2019.
Yeah.
The only reason they're relevant. And what did I? If people who don't believe me, go back to 2020 when we first started and listen to what I said. I said if he doesn't create a system that can generate more young African-American coaches, more Black coaches, instead of recycling the same old trash coaches that these conferences have been recycling for the last decade and a half, you won't be able to create a program that can sustain itself long after he leaves. We knew he wasn't going to be there forever. In a perfect world, would it have been great? Yeah, it'd have been cool to see Deion there forever. But we know that's not what he's going to do. Only reason he's there probably is because no other big school will give him a chance. Hey, we know how that goes. We know if you're skinning, certain color, you probably not going to get no free chance. That's just what it is. But we know he can coach. He's coached at the high school level and won. So far, he's been coaching at Jackson State and proving he's a winner. And he can recruit too. Who the hell wouldn't want Deion Sanders coming into their house to recruit? Let Deion had ever come to Ettrick. Bruh, what you need my foot? I know your foot messed up, Deion. You can have my foot if you come recruit me.
Crazy.
You can come have my foot if you want to come recruit me, bro. I know that turf toe got you. You can have my toe. Like, so
anybody playing with you, bro?
I don't think that now, unless Deion has a successor that can stay at Jackson State, I just don't think there's a system that's been created and installed that can help young coaches really, bring that type of talent to HBCUs. Now, will Eddie George and I can't think of the dude's name at Grambling, Hugh Jackson, will those coaches stay at Tennessee State and Grambling and continue to build them up and stuff like that? Hopefully, because that's still some relevancy and stuff like that. So, I'm not going to say it's going to be all lost, but it would be a very, very detrimental thing to HBCUs if he left after this season. And so far, USF, I mean, honestly, between USF and Colorado, like, bro, go to South Florida. You from Florida, you from Fort Myers. I think USF is like right down the street from Fort Myers. We know Deion is a likable person, so he's going to shake things up and he will win there. But it would definitely be sad to see him go from Jackson State. But we'll see. I think Jackson State should have tried to, tried their hand at the, FCF playoffs, really show, all that talent, but yeah, I don't know, we'll see, so I hope they, win next week in the SWAC title, and then we'll see how they do in the Celebration Bowl against, I want to say it's no, it's not A&T, it's Central. I think Central's in the Celebration Bowl.
I didn't look.
So yeah. I know I just did a whole bunch of rambling on and everything about Jackson State and everything, but I just had to get that off my chest.
Give your mental health tip quickly so that we can jump into this topic.
Got you. Yeah. So my mental health topic of the week is there is no plastic surgery for your mental health.
That's deep.
And so, I'm a social media aficionado. I like to observe. As clinicians, we're very great observers and everything. And I think it's important as clinicians that we observe society as a whole, to see what's going on, the trends, the patterns, just because we know that as society, there's a lot of trends, themes, and patterns within society, and so on and so forth. So, one of the trends that's been going on for a while, obviously, is, plastic surgery. People for years, don't like what, their God-given bodies or natural made bodies and stuff like that. Hey, not everybody can be, a 10, I always tell people I'm a strong 7, I'm not, sexiest man in the world, but I know I ain't ugly. Boy, you can't tell me that. You can call me a lot of things. You can't call me ugly. You hear what I'm saying? Shoot. But But, so with that being said, obviously we live in a society, we live in a world where if there's something that you don't like physically about yourself, you can damn near get surgery for it now. You can get, I just saw you can get muscle implants. Like,
I think my husband showed me some of that craziness the other day.
You can get,
he was showing me, so I don't know if it was a TikTok or what it was, and it was a hot mess.
You can get ab implants. You can get like the pec implants.
It looked like Popeye when he's taking his,
it looks ridiculous.
It looked a sight.
And I think as humans, we naturally always want, the path of least resistance. We just want, once again, I always say we want microwave results, as opposed to building the body you want. We just want to go get surgery, get, up under a knife on a table and, boom, $5,000, $10,000 later, I can get the ass I always wanted. I can get the breast I always wanted. I can, for men, you can get the muscles you always wanted, whatever the case may be. But the one thing that there is no plastic surgery for is your mental health, And I always tell people, like, as quickly as we are to invest money into our bodies for whatever reason, whether it's plastic surgery, physical and fitness, whatever the case may be, I encourage people, to really put that investment into your mental health as well. I always tell people, when you see somebody struggling with, mental health things and whatever the case may be, whether it's depression, anxiety, personality disorder, whatever the case may be, I always put it in context and, not to sound insensitive or anything, but I really try to push this point to people to understand. When you see somebody struggling with a mental health, illness and stuff like that, we sometimes we can feel powerless. We can feel helpless because it's like, yo, like, I want to help you. I want to, just, make all your pain go away, all that. And I tell people, you can't fix somebody else, no matter how bad we want to.
Yeah.
But if that mental illness was something physically like cancer, I always tell people, imagine if your mental illness was a physical illness like cancer, like stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, where you have no choice but to go get medical help. You have no choice but to seek medical advice and medical intervention, because now it's gone too far. Now it's spread so far throughout your body that you cannot simply just sit there and say, oh, well, it'll figure itself out. No, it won't. Same thing with your mental illness. Same thing with your mental health challenges. If you allow it to get to a certain point, yes, there will become a point in time where you feel like, yeah, I have no choice but to get help now. And if you get to that point, cool. But you can also do something beforehand too. You can also seek that advice beforehand too. And I always tell people, just like with doctors, just because they have a white coat on and stuff like that, and they got doctor in front of their name, don't mean they always know what they're talking about, and don't mean they're the best fit for you. So same thing with clinicians and therapists. Just because they got doctor in front of the name, or if they got the whole alphabet soup behind the name and stuff like that, does not mean they're for you. You have the power as the client to express yourself to the therapist and say, hey, I don't like this approach, or I don't like that. That is your right as a client. It is not our right to tell you, well, suck it up and deal with it, or, carry your ass on or something. Like, hey, if you feel like we're not the right fit, I can always refer you to psychologytoday.com. I can refer you to a multitude of other websites and stuff like that who have trained professionals and clinicians that might be a better fit for you. But just like with going to the gym or going to the doctor, just because it doesn't work out the first time doesn't mean it won't work out at all.
Right. Can I piggyback on that real quick?
Absolutely.
I literally was just having this conversation with my aunt yesterday, because and you get it too, right? So oftentimes as clinicians, we hear horror stories about, how many counselors or therapists the person had before they got to us. And I tell people, you have to test drive a therapist just like you would test drive a car.
Yeah.
In that though, Ronnie, we as clinicians, and I know you and I do this, right? And a number of our colleagues do, but there are some of our colleagues that don't. The clinician also has to be able to say, you know what, I don't think that we're the right fit. That's why I do consultations. I do my free consultations, and I tell my potential clients, the whole purpose of me offering you a free consultation is because we collectively need to make sure that we're a good fit, because if we don't have that cohesion within the therapeutic relationship and process, we are not going to be able to be effective in our efforts to try to help them. So
Right.
it's important for folks, and when we look at it through that, through the lens of mental health, a lot of times some of these disorders, people are coming to us with fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. And if you tell them that, if we as clinicians tell them that I don't think we're a good fit, folk feel all rejected and want you to give them this lengthy explanation of why and the whole 9 yards. And Ronnie, I just tell them simple. I put a disclaimer out there from the door when I'm doing my consultation. I'm not for everybody. I recognize that. My approaches, the methodologies that I use, the accountability that I hold my clients to in managing their wellness under my guidance is not for everybody. I am not an easy therapist to work with from an accountability standpoint, because I'm not that therapist that wants to still be working with somebody 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Only come to me if you're serious about getting well.
I feel you.
So people need to understand.
And I think, I always thought, because I'm pretty sure you get asked this quite often too. It's like, well, how many sessions do I need, or how long do I have to come for?
Yep, all the time.
And I always tell people, I'm like, for however long as you take for you to figure this out. However, it is not my job to figure it out for you. It is my job. It is my job to explore perspectives and possibilities of maybe solutions that you can try together. I always tell people, you don't have to walk alone. I'll walk with you, but I'm not going to walk for you. Oops.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think a lot of times, people come into therapy, not all the time, but sometimes people come into therapy thinking that, it's the therapist's job to fix them. And, sometimes, people will ask me like, well, what do you think I should do? And I'm like,
what do you think you should do?
Yeah.
I'm not a human mechanic.
Yeah, I'm not in this situation. You are, because if I tell you what I might do, my perspective on it might be completely different from yours. And you might feel like, well, dang, like I shouldn't think like this. No, you think how you think. That's unique to you. Just like this solution is going to be unique to you.
Indeed.
What worked for me might not work for you. And that's fine. But people, there is no plastic surgery for your mental health.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. There's no, now unless these plastic surgeons can go in your brain and fix your frontal cortex or your right hemisphere, your left hemisphere.
That's right.
Hey, I might sign up for that surgery too. Give me a little grandiose delusions. Make me feel like I'm king of the world or whatever. I might just implant that a little bit. Let me drop some of this serotonin in there right away.
Something's wrong with him. You have to do the self-work, folks. You have to. Absolutely. It's not just going to snap your fingers and and we're talking about conditioning. We're talking about, adverse childhood experiences, trauma, and all of these things that have had this adverse impact on how you think, feel, function, and navigate life. And if you're not willing to do the work to get yourself in a healthier state of mind, you're going to stay in the stage.
I know a certain 79-year-old who I hope has had to spend the last 65 years doing the self-work they need to do, but I'm not going to touch on that. All right, y'all. So let's get into this topic. And now as a clinician, part of being a clinician is also being a great observer. I talked about my observing skills on social media, but also my observing skills work in many different realms. And Dr. Pitts, I'll be honest, not that I'm your clinician in any way, shape, or form, but if you need one, hey, I do pro bono too. I got you. From my observing lens, I'm getting a little stress and burnout vibes from you right now. Just a little, maybe not so much stress as burnout, but I'm definitely getting some burnout vibes from you this morning. And maybe it's a good thing we're talking about this topic of stress and burnout, because not only do people, well, not that athletes aren't people, but we know that not only do people experience burnout, but athletes experience burnout all the time as well, believe it or not.
And
Not
so do
all the
we as
time does
clinicians.
somebody want to go, oh, go ahead.
No, I just said, and we as clinicians, it's something that we have to be very mindful of, because you have to be careful of vicarious trauma. You how you manage your caseload, the types of cases that you accept. All of those things have the ability to affect us too. And if we're not careful, we really can be burned. He's being smart, y'all, just so you know. Dr. Fitz,
I'm being for real.
No, he's not.
I was being for real. I really do feel like,
Don't believe him. Don't believe him. He's lying.
I was being for real. You do look like you burnt out. If you are, that's fine. I'm just saying, you just like you a little, just a little burnt out this morning. Hey, post Thanksgiving, we can be burnt out from Thanksgiving too, But yeah, no. So I think this is a really great topic to talk about, because it is for a lot of our collegiate athletes, it is the end of the semester or the end of the semester for a lot of schools already. And we know what that comes with already, and believe it or not, I always tell people that as much as people, from the outside looking in think that, athletes just have, this glamorous day-to-day life and everything, are there some great perks of being a student athlete at the college level? Absolutely. The higher the school you are, the more perks there are. You get a lot more things catered to you, get a lot more opportunities and stuff like that. So you have your benefits. But what do we know with anything in life? With more assets requires more responsibilities, which require more discipline and more work, so on and so forth. So a lot of times people, when they look at student athletes, they just hear about the full rides, the stipends, the free gear, the free travel,
the attention,
exactly, all the notoriety, all the you ain't got to go to class, and all these things.
Look, extra meals at the cafe.
Exactly. Or being able to get free food when you go to a restaurant and thing. Hey, to each his own. And are those some of the perks that can be afforded to maybe some student athletes out there? Absolutely. Is that something for all student athletes? No. let me stop you right there. No. That's afforded to a very few select schools out of the 1,000. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like over like 1,200 schools that participate in NCAA sports at some division and rank. So there's only a handful of the 1,000 plus NCAA regulated schools that get those type of luxuries.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's required of all student athletes, regardless of level, Division 1, 2, or 3, is your work ethic and your presence.
Yeah.
And no matter if you are at Florida State University or Florida A&M, like the amount of expectations and the amount of work that you have to put in week and week out as a student athlete is the same expectation. And
and then off the field or the court or the baseball diamond, because it's academic and athletic. And a lot of times, and we talk about this all the time, right? A lot of times there's this neglect of the academic element, but we
and so, for people who don't know, I've broken down a typical day for a student athlete, before the show, and just trying to go through it real quickly again, just a typical, just regular day for a student athlete, depending on the sport might vary at the times and whatnot, but I'll just use football, for example. So on a regular Tuesday during the season, we'll get up between 5:30 and 6. We'll have team meetings at 6:30. Those will last about 45 minutes or whatever. And then depending on your position group, if either that Tuesday or Wednesday you had lifting, so we watch film at the team, and then you go lift for 45 minutes. And then if you had an 8 a.m. class, you had to leave, get dressed, go to your 8 a.m. and whatnot. Then typically you have classes from 8 to 2. That's what kind of our time block was. 8 to 2 was our time block to have our classes. If your major didn't permit, you had to get special exemptions and stuff like that, depending on your major, because believe it or not all schools care for student athletes and care for them to have their schedules adjusted to because they're a student athlete, believe it or not. Some teachers don't give a damn. Some teachers like, hey, I'm not getting no money from the football team, so I'm not changing my schedule. It's like that. So once again, another thing that student athletes have to do is always adjust on the fly. So, 8 to 2 is typically your class schedule. And then from 2 to 6 is your athletic window. You got treatment, you got film study, pre-practice, practice, post-practice, all that. And then from from like 6 to 7, you have enough time to, go shower, run to the lunch hall, get something to eat. Then from 7 to 9, you had mandatory study hall, and study hall was mandatory for freshmen. And if you had below a 3.0, your ass was in there Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9. And then from 9 o'clock to whenever you decide to go to sleep, that was your time. And, typically you had more schoolwork, or you tried to be a regular college student, whatever that looked like for you at that time. And then you wake back up all over again at 5:30 the next day, doing all over again. So typically athletes, are 16 to 18-hour days are our normalcy, and sometimes, if you throw in travel, like we had to travel, like I remember we had to travel to Kentucky one day, but that was a 13-hour bus ride, like just traveling the day before the game. That was a 13-hour bus ride. And then we had to get ready, do practice, interviews, I mean, not interviews, but meetings and stuff like that. So, it's safe to say that most athletes after work, I mean, we know as adults, you work an 18-hour day, you are tired.
Yeah.
You are exhausted, you are burnt out. And what happens is, once again, game days are fun and everything. But when you find yourself middle of the season, and let's say for like, I was a sociology major. So, sociology is not necessarily a hard major per se, but it's not an easy one either. Especially when you get to, the sophomore, junior, senior level classes, it's more, research based, more documentation, more papers, more, group projects, things like that. So those things require time too, so one of the things that I always found challenging, especially like halfway through the season, was once you said, like, my focus was football. So, during the season, something always kind of had to take a hit. And, that was classes. Now, what I'm about to say, I don't recommend for nobody to do. All right. I don't recommend this at all.
Don't make Dr. Maiden make his stomach hurt. Go ahead.
So, but I will say, sometimes, so most colleges, I'm pretty sure this is, depending on its colleges, but at Virginia State, for example, we had this rule where, you were allowed to miss 3 classes if you notified the teacher ahead of time. You were allowed to miss 3 classes before your letter grade was affected. So let's say, for example, you have, an A the entire semester, but you missed 4 classes. Well, because you missed 4 classes, the highest grade you could technically get was a B. So, that was one of the things I used to use as a way to get extra sleep. Like if it was a class that I knew I was doing really well in, and we didn't really have a lot going on, I might hit the teacher up and say, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm, not gonna be in class today. If there's any material I need or any material I need to make up, please let me know and I can come by during your office hours. Boom. Good. Now I will say this, athletes, if you do miss a class, let your teachers know. Please let your teachers know. Because, not all teachers are anti-athletes. Not all of them. You do have some professors out there who, for whatever reason, have vendettas, have anxiety, not anxiety, but angst against athletes, whatever the case may be. Still do your part as an athlete and a professional to communicate with your professors, because when you don't communicate, you leave it up to assumption. And oftentimes the assumption about a student athlete missing class and not notifying the teacher is often never times, oh, I wonder if something's wrong with them. It's ungrateful, entitled, student athlete think he can't come to class. Watch this. We never get the benefit of the doubt assumption. But one of the things that oftentimes we see happen is, especially as, athletes feel this need to have to maintain a certain level of, a standard, not only athletically, but academically. We have a lot of student athletes who have, very tough majors, engineering majors, science majors, math majors, things like that require just as much mental energy as, your sport requires physical and mental energy, and unfortunately we've seen, just this year alone, we've seen, especially during the spring semester, we've seen a lot of athletes, especially 5 female athletes in particular, commit suicide due to, just athletic stress and burnout. A lot of, and I'm not just sitting there saying that's the only reason why, those individuals, took their life. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of other things mounting on top of that decision. But what we also know is that when your sport is no longer your safe haven, when your sport is no longer your escape from the stress and burnout of the world, and you feel stress and burnout from your sport, you can really find yourself in a very deep and dark hole. And when you don't have that escape, oftentimes we don't feel like the only escape we have is no choice but to, possibly hurt ourselves. And that's a scary place to be sometimes for athletes.
You said a mouthful.
I'm
No. It's good. It was a good mouthful, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to piggyback on first. So, if I were to sort of surmise what you said, what you are saying in essence, and everybody needs to really get this, is that college students are required, and high school students too, right, are required to manage a lot of stressors related to academics, social engagement, financial obligations, and it's burdensome, right? When you hear how Ronnie talks about his academic trajectory, his athletic trajectory since he was a little kid, and what that looks like once you get to the collegiate level, it's extremely time consuming. And you touch on, and you've said it a bazillion times in past shows about the fact that there's limited sleep, right? Well,
right.
we know that sleep deprivation has an adverse impact on everything. So when we look at some of the added stressors that come as a result of being a student athlete, now you're opening the door for mental health challenges to creep in, with increased depression, low motivation, anger, eating disorders. What statistics and research has shown us is that, like, for example, where, and you touched on it, Ronnie, right? Training, overtraining has been linked to causing burnout in up to 10% of athletes, that can show up in the form of impaired mood, low self-esteem, loss of confidence, and the big D again, depression, right? So it is so critically important for our listeners to understand that a lot of, you know, like, I hate the term, oh my gosh, you're just so moody. Oh my gosh, you're just so, I can't stand it, because it's so loaded, right? There's
Right.
so much behind what's presenting itself as moody. And what a lot of people don't realize, because they don't necessarily understand the clinical ramifications of everything that you said, is that it's a stress response. All of
Right.
these adverse behaviors, these maladaptive behaviors that we see demonstrated in athletes. If you have a bad game, you came into the game and your head wasn't on straight. That's not just about, oh, you didn't practice well this week. There's so many other things that are, it's like, you know how in the typical scale, it's two-sided, right? I see the scale of an athlete is have like an octopus, right? You have all of these balls that you're trying to juggle in the air. Some of them are knocking you in the head, and the behavior that we see is a stress response, folks. It's 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 a stress response that has this systemic and even cyclical impact, all of which can compromise stellar performance, but it can also compromise sound mental health. And people need to understand that all of these things are connected, they're interwoven, they're entwined, and you can't just address one without addressing all of the others. That's like saying that your car has 4 flat tires and you change one and think that the car is now going to ride right. It's
Right.
not. You have to take a holistic look at everything that the athlete is experiencing, so that you can sort of, dissect it, and clinically what we say is unpack it, so that you're able to support the athlete in the most productive way. The focus just can't be on athletic performance.
And you know what's great? So when I was listening to you talk, one of the things I was thinking about, for people to really kind of maybe grasp, just the idea of, how, off the field stress and burnout can impact on the field. We know with any profession, especially us as clinicians,
Mhm.
it is hard to go into a session when your mind is on 1,000 other things. You know,
That's right.
one of the things that us as clinicians have to have is the mental space and capacity and energy to go into a session and give our full awareness, full effort, and full attention to our client during that 45 to 60-minute window, you know. And when you can't do that, it shows, you know.
Yeah.
And one of the quickest things for, you know, a clinician to recognize within themselves if it's stress and burnout is compassion fatigue. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
when we think about, you know, being able to have that capacity to be compassionate and understanding for folks. You know, once you start to feel yourself losing that and you feel like your impatience is starting to rise, you might need to really, you know, take a step back. Let's just look at the NFL this year real quick. You know, look at Tom Brady. You know, I think that's a great example of somebody who's stress and burnout off the field, you know,
Yeah.
with his, you know, his off the field issues with his, you know, marital issues and, you know, culminating in a divorce. Look how that spanned out the first, I think, 7 games of the season. His head wasn't there. He wasn't focused. He was, I mean, you were guaranteed for the first 7 weeks of the season to see Tom Brady throw a tablet, you know, on the sideline and break it. I'm pretty sure after game 2, the NFL was like, hey, Tom, I know you're making a lot of money, bro, but these tablets are not cheap, sir. They're not cheap. But, you know, post, you know, divorce and all that, we've started to see where he's starting to have maybe some of that mental capacity and stuff like that to not get burnt out on the field. And we're starting to see him play a little bit better. But with any athlete, look at all the other athletes we've seen over the, you know, the years when, you know, their head is not in the game. We all, any coach will ever tell you, if you are not present during a game, there's a very, very high chance you can get hurt.
Can I say something right there?
Go ahead.
I just want to plug it. We don't have to talk about it. I think something's going on with Russell Wilson mentally.
You know, it's funny.
I think I mean, obviously I have no way of knowing, but just watching, you know, I'm real big on the eyes.
Yeah.
Just watching him, listening to him speak, watching how he's performing, his body language, like all of his nonverbals and everything. I'm like, he's off. He's off. Something with him is off.
To that point, you know, obviously we're not mind readers or anything, but I think one of the things we're starting to see with Russell Wilson is, you know, when he was in Seattle, you know, I think it's part like, you know, he fit a system in Seattle. The system was geared towards him where Russell was a game manager. You know, as long as Russell didn't put the ball in harm's way and as long as Russell could scramble out the pocket and keep a play alive, we saw him thrive. We also seen that the last couple of seasons as Russell's dealt with injuries and now the injuries are starting to pile up. He doesn't have that same athletic twitch as he once did where he could just, you know, go out and scramble out of the pocket, play backyard football, throw the football 40 yards downfield and something happens. You know, you couple that with a brand new head coach and a coach who we just saw after the first game of the season, he admitted that he had no idea what to do the last minute of the game. You know, granted, Russell Wilson is a great quarterback and everything, but you have to have a head coach that can sync up with, you know, your play caller and be like, hey, we have to be in tune here. So I think we're seeing a culmination of, you know,
a perfect storm.
Yeah, the perfect storm for somebody to be stressed and burnt out. And I think, you know, I think, you know, Russell was also catching a lot of flack for the whole let's ride thing, you know. Yeah, I don't know where y'all riding to, but it's not to a winning season. But yeah, no, I think, you know, definitely something, you know, when the season, I always tell people, you know, when you're losing, it is hard to stay motivated and it's hard to want to. The one thing about football is like nobody likes to just get beat up for fun. You know, I don't know no football player who likes to just be a punching bag and a dummy for fun or whatever. And, you know, when you're losing, when, you know, when your team is just not clicking on all cylinders, and, you know, y'all and the head coach or the coaching staff ain't really seeing eye to eye, it's demoralizing. It's like, you really go out there some days and you're like, man, like, for what? What am I doing this for? Like, this is pointless. And when your heart is not in it, you know, is really you can really get hurt. I've seen a lot of people who, you know, their head's not in it and their heart's not in it, and you know they don't watch themselves and they're not careful, and now they're out for the season, or now they're missing a game or two because they're burnt out, or they got so much stuff going on in their in their personal lives that it just spills out onto the field.
I want to, because what you're describing leaves the door wide open for additional mental health challenges to creep in. I want to share some stats that I think is really important for our listeners to hear. So one of the things that we know at this stage in society is that mental health issues are a significant concern among our college student athletes. And there's been an increased emphasis placed on the mental health of college athletes. Ronnie, based on the 2019 National College Health Assessment Survey from the American College Health Association, there were 67,972 participants. 27.8% of the students reported having anxiety. 20.2% reported experiencing depression, which negatively affected their academic performance. Approximately 65.7%, 50.7% males and 71.8% females reported feeling overwhelming anxiety in the past 12 months, and 45.1%, 37.1% of which was males and 47.6% were females, reported feeling so depressed, Ronnie, that it was difficult for them to function. However, only 24.3%, which was 13% male and 28.4% female, reported being diagnosed and treated by a professional in the past 12 months. College athletes are not immune to these issues. When you look at the information presented by the NCAA, many certified athletic trainers anecdotally state that anxiety is an issue affecting the collegiate athlete population. But despite the fact that college athletes are exposed to all of these stressors, Ronnie, they're less likely to seek help.
And I think, and I will say, I do feel like within the last couple of years, I do feel like that trend is hopefully changing, from what we see, schools reporting and, just from what I've seen on social media and stuff like that. I would like to think that that narrative is slowly but surely starting to change. I have seen where schools are, making an effort to include mental health into, their routines with their student athletes and stuff like that. And once again, we've said for years now, like, this should be a no-brainer when we talk about things to fit in a budget for athletic programs. Having a mental health provider, whether you fit them in your athletic budget, or you get alumni or donor to foot the bill, having a quality mental health practitioner for your athletic programs is going to become a necessity, because once again, like, where do these athletes go when their sport is no longer their safe haven? And we know, we've said it before, we know that the higher levels you go, yes, at the end of the day, is your sport fun? Yes, right. It's fun. It is fun to play football. It is fun to play basketball, baseball, softball, whatever the case may be. They are fun. But we know the reality of the situation is that the higher the levels you go up, the more it becomes about the business of the sport and not the sport. And when you're trying to get teenage kids and young adult kids to make business-minded decisions off of a childhood sport, if you don't have the right people in their corner, if you don't have the right supports in their corner, and if you don't have people old enough and good-hearted enough to have their best interest at heart, you leave it up to these kids to make sometimes impulsive, rash decisions that could possibly impact the rest of their adult life. So when you don't have those parameters in place, when you don't have those measures in place, you leave it up to these student athletes to figure it out. And we see, whether you're a student athlete or a person, when you don't have support, when you don't have help, when you just have to figure things out on your own, we know sometimes, more times than not, you're not always going to make the best decisions off jump. And sometimes those not good decisions off jump could further impact you and make you not even want to seek any solution. So, I hope this trend is changing, but there's still more work that needs to be done.
And it needs to start at the high school level, Ronnie.
Absolutely.
When you think about the stars that our high school student athletes get in their eyes about going to college on a full athletic scholarship. They've got visions of being professionals dancing in their head, whether it's the NFL, the MLB, the NBA or whatever. They have these grandiose ideas that are connected to going to the league, whichever league that may be. And what our work shows us is there really are delusions of grandeur that they have as it relates to the transition from play at the high school level to play at the collegiate level. The demands athletically, academically, socially, financially, relationally go to a whole nother dimension at the collegiate level that so many of these kids that we see in our practices simply just are not ready to handle. And a big part of why they're not ready to handle it is because nobody is providing the psychoeducation. Right. Nobody is taking the time to say, hey, did you know that you're going to be even more prone to experience depression, to experience anxiety, to experience psychological and physiological issues at the collegiate level? And then what does that look like if you do go into the league? It's exponential increase in the mental health challenges that you are going to experience because of the demands for the level of play that you must produce are at a whole nother dimension. The time commitment, whole nother level. And it goes on and on and on. So what ends up happening is this causes an exponential increase in athletic stress. And if people, if the coaches and the trainers and the parents are not monitoring what is going on with the student athlete externally and internally, now we have the situation that you described. We have athletes taking their lives. We have athletes taking the lives of their former teammates.
Right.
It's a mess, and there has to be a management system and a system developed where coping strategies are concerned long before these student athletes are getting to the collegiate level. These strategies really could be beneficial at the middle school level.
Oh yeah, I think it's just, it's no different than us when we work with children. When we're talking about getting children just to understand, emotions and understand that you hear so many times people say like, I just wish I could turn my emotions off, or wish I could control my emotions. It's not about controlling your emotions. It's about understanding what triggers them so you can better use them or not use them.
Yeah.
I always tell people your emotions are nothing but the sensors in your body telling you what's going on inside and outside of you.
Yeah.
So understanding your emotions and understanding how you can use that to help make better decisions and help better express yourself, that right there can go a long ways. And then as you get older and as more things begin to compound and become, more real and stuff like that, as you enter the real world, it's not about being able to necessarily block those emotions or not deal with them. You will be able to deal with them because you know what's triggering them, and you can address the triggers as opposed to the actions. No different than if you have a cold. Oftentimes you hear doctors say, don't treat the symptoms, treat the behaviors. I'm not going to sit there and dope a kid up because they have a high temperature if they're still functioning and active. If they're lethargic and unresponsive, okay, we need to address it. But if they have a high temperature, but the kid is still eating, drinking, and using the restroom appropriately, no, just continue to treat what's going on. So for me, I always tell people, as much as no different than what I said earlier about, there's no plastic surgery for your mental health. To my athletes out there, there is no workout program, there is no coach, there is no championship, no bowl game, no conference title that can erase your mental health challenges and struggles. So just like you invest in your bodies to go out there and give it your all, make that same investment for your mental health too, so that way you can be present in your cleats, be present in your shoes, be present on the court or the field. Because if you can't be present, then, I don't know who's out there for you, but it ain't you.
That's real. So look, folks, in the instance of time, one of the things that I want to point out, and then we're going to wrap up. I will tell you all, just because I am the person that I am. So I lost the bet to Ronnie. And because we're not going to have enough time to do it today, he'll give the final stats of where we were in our
Football,
for the
football
football
picks.
stats, for the football picks, for the HBCU picks. We'll find out which guest had the best record so that we can get them our appreciation guests for playing along with us. He'll make that announcement next week, and then the following week I'll wear my Eagles gear like I agreed to do for the game. I don't have a problem with that because my husband's Eagles fan, so there's plenty of Eagles gear up in this piece. But what I want to point out real quick, because I need folks to understand, right? Burnout. That's what we were talking about today. When you look at it, burnout is merely the result of physical and emotional stress that comes from training and the exertion in the sport and everything holistically that goes into your engagement in athletic play. So, and I'm saying this to parents and to athletes, there's some risk factors involved here that folks need to be aware of. Specializing in only one sport, sudden and large increases in training, participation in endurance sports, high anxiety level, low self-esteem, and pressure from parents, coaches, fans, so on and so forth. The signs and symptoms that you are burnt out: chronic muscle and joint pain, weight loss and loss of appetite, increased heart rate at rest, decreased sports performance, fatigue, prolonged recovery time, lack of enthusiasm, frequent illnesses, difficulty completing usual routines, decreased performance in school, so your academic performance, personality or mood changes, increased anger or irritability, sleep disturbances, difficulty sleeping or sleeping without feeling refreshed. And here's some warning signs of unhealthy sports participation, which can increase your risk of burnout. The athlete is no longer having fun playing the sports. You just said that. The athlete's sport is dominating his or her life and his or her family's life. The only topic of conversation at home or at the dinner table is athletic play. The athlete is rewarded on how they perform in sports. The athlete has missed 10% of his or her season and has not yet seen a doctor. The only important thing to the athlete or parent is winning. A female athlete is now 16 and has not yet started her menstrual cycle. The athlete is dieting just to become a faster performer. An athlete only plays one sport and is unwilling to try any other sports. So, there's definitely ways to prevent burnout, making training fun and interesting with age-appropriate games and workouts, keep the training regimen flexible with planned breaks, maintain supportive environment for the athlete, teach the athlete to be aware of the cues from their body, that's so huge, that indicate a need to slow down or change your routine, and discuss the importance of overall health and wellness, both mentally and physically, and have those conversations. You may need to see one of us if you're experiencing burnout. Don't wait until it's too late, folks. Don't wait until it's too late. Ronnie, take us home.
Thank you for sharing all those tips. And also, there's, I think, one last thing, parents, make sure you're communicating with your children as well, too. I know a lot of times, our kids can, they say, oh, I'm doing all right, everything is fine.
What's fine?
We know that exactly, or what is good. Always when a client says I'm doing good, well, tell me one good thing that happened so I know what good is for you. So, parents, make sure you just, communicate with your kids and recognize those signs as well. If you think your child is going through any athletic stress and burnout. So that's it for today, folks. Glad for everybody who joined in and whatnot. Catch us back here next week, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as well, as we talk about cognitive distortions and everything. Hope everybody enjoys the rest of their holiday weekends. Thank you for all for tuning in, and we'll holler at you next week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.